Hi everyone, this is Emily Leiphart from Art from the Heart. Welcome to our 7th video for the Too Many Cards video series. Ellen Hutson is our generous sponsor today, and we're excited to be playing with the Totally Random Sayings Volume 2 and Plaid Maker stamp sets, as well as the block words dies. Just as much as I love coloring illustrated stamp sets, I also love working with bold graphic stamp sets like these ones. These 3 stamp sets were very easy to mix and match to create bright and happy, clean and simple designs. The Totally Random Sayings Volume 2 stamp set has big, bold block words, which coordinate with the block words dies. It also includes secondary sentiments in classic fonts as well as scripted fonts, and these are my favorite kinds of sentiment sets. There are 7 bold words in the Totally Random Sayings stamp set and 9 block words dies. All of the stamps have coordinating dies, and the extra 2 dies are the words hello and you, so that would give you an infinite number of options when it comes to creating your own sentiments. The Plaid Maker stamp set allows you to stamp plaid patterns quickly and also build your own plaid in 2 styles and sizes. I'll be using all but one of these on my cards today. I started by selecting my colors for the sentiments, which would be the focus of these cards. I'm using Catherine Pooler inks sold at Ellen Hutson. I love the bright colors and crispness of these inks, and I highly recommend them. I'll be using these colors in a different order and swapping out 2 of the colors for the second and third cards. As always, I'll have my products linked below for your convenience. When I started, I didn't know how many cards I'd make, but it's always nice to make more than one to give away as a set or just to have on hand in my stash. I can never have too many birthday or thank you cards. I've cut several A2 bases and A2 panels. I will cut down the panels when all of the die cutting and stamping are done. It's easier to do them in the same size as the base so they're easy to line up. If they were cut down already, I'd have to tape them down and worry about them shifting when stamping on both the base and the front panel. I'm using the original Misty as well as the Creative Corners and bar magnet to help hold my card bases and panels in place. I find that my stamping is better when the paper is not in the corner of the Misty. The first custom sentiment will read, "Hello friend, you really are marvelous." I opted to include "kind of" for a bit of humor, and also to extend the sentiment and break up the 2 scripted lines. I centered the friend stamp and used my design ruler to make sure it's centered horizontally on the card. Then I ink up with Tiki Torch and stamp it on the card base. I changed the design so you won't see the solid stamped word on the front panel, but you can see how beautifully these inks stamp. On my second card you'll see a different version of these stamped words. I add the front panel and stamp the word again, but this time I'm going to use the small plaid pattern to kiss the ink and create a plaid texture on the friend stamp. You'll always see me rubbing the new stamps in my palm to condition them and remove manufacturing residue to make it easier to get a good inking. With the kissing technique, you can also ink up the plaid with a different color of ink to get a contrast, but for my cards I've chosen to stick to making a pattern impression instead of double inking. Then I'll stamp the next line in Aquatini and the other 2 lines in Tutti Frutti and Royal Treatment. If I make a shaker from the white on white hello, it won't stand out, and the top part of the card will be too plain. I'm going to use the long lines from the Plaid Maker stamp set to stamp stripes across the card base, so you'll be able to see them through the window of the shaker. My ink colors for these lines will mirror the bottom 3 colors of the sentiment. I won't use Tiki Torch again since there's so much of it in the friend word. Before stamping though, I realize I need to cover up the edges of the card base since my panel will be slightly smaller and I want to keep those edges white. After the stamping is all done, I can assemble the card. I start by trimming down the front panel with an A2 rectangle stacks die, and I'll do this with all of the cards. To create the shaker element, I apply score tape to the back of the panel and adhere a piece of acetate. Then I'll apply foam tape to pop up the panel, as well as contain the sequins. I always use foam tape to create as small a section as possible so I don't have to use a lot of sequins. I'm using Studio Katia's Crystal Stars sequins, also sold at Ellen Hutson. These stars are so cute and shiny. They pack quite a punch and I absolutely love them. Die cut some stars from the Home and Hearth die set using silver glitter cardstock and add coordinating enamel dots. The dots I'm using are retired sets, but there are so many to choose from on the market, and if you don't have colors that match, you can also use Copic markers to color white enamel dots, which I do 3 times on these cards. I never press my enamel dots down until I'm absolutely sure they're where I want them to be. I'm constantly moving my embellishments around to see where they look best. Since my glue dots are too big for most of these stars, I use glossy accents to adhere them. The glitter cardstock has a shiny backing, and I find that glossy accents is the best adhesive for this material. I do use a glue dot for the biggest star. Now my first card is done. There are several techniques here, including a shaker element, a plaid kissed word, and a multicolored custom sentiment. On to the next card. My second card will feature the same basic layout but a twist on the shaker, and of course the sentiment will differ. This one will read, "Thanks friend, you're the best." I'm going to die cut 2 of the words this time, and they'll be what I'm going to call a holographic window. Once again, I'm using my design ruler to make sure everything is centered, and then I die cut and stamp the sentiment. I do everything from the top down to make sure the spacing between lines is just right. The colors for this card will be Tutti Frutti, Green Tea, Tiki Torch, and Fiesta Blue. So I'm going to stamp the scripted thanks in Tutti Frutti. Then to create the first holographic word, I'm going to stamp the word friend twice in Green Tea, first on the front panel and again on the card base. I'm going to offset it from the die cut word slightly to the top left-hand corner. I'm stamping it plain on the front panel and kissing it with plaid for the second stamping. Now, when I hold the front cover over top of the second stamping, you can see the cool effect of the offset and textured stamping. I'll stamp the next line in Tiki Torch, and the word best will be stamped exactly the same way as the word friend. With the front panel laid on top, you can see how cool this kind of stamping looks. After trimming down the panel with the A2 rectangle die, I can add foam tape and pop up the panel on the card base. No shaker or sequins are necessary, since the offset plaid kissed words carry the wow factor on their own. Everything was already centered for me with the MISTI, so I really don't have to worry about lining up the words. I simply center the panel and it looks perfect. All I have to do is add a few embellishments and my card is done. I don't have a blue that matches the Fiesta Blue ink, so I use a Copic marker to color a white enamel dot. This is actually a shade too dark, so I swap it out later. I also don't have an enamel dot that matches Tiki Torch, so again I use a Copic marker to color a white enamel dot. Sometimes you have to go over it a few times to get an even coverage. I find that the faster I color, the better the results. Also, coverage is better if you draw lines across it rather than making a circular motion with the marker. As I mentioned, I'm always moving these embellishments around, and they come off easily because I haven't pressed them on permanently. Here's me swapping out the blue enamel dot for one in a lighter shade. And a quick review of the first 2 cards. For my final card, I'm using Tutti Frutti, Green Tea, Royal Treatment, and Aquatini. The sentiment will read, "Sending happy birthday wishes, friend." And I'll be using both the positive and negative pieces of the block words dies. When the friend word comes out of the die cutting machine, I keep the pieces in the die and use a piece of removable tape to pull out the letters. This way they stay straight, and when I stamp them on using the plaid maker stamps, the pattern looks continuous across the entire word. I set that aside and stamp birthday wishes in Royal Treatment. Then I die cut happy using the block words dies and stamp sending above that in Tutti Frutti. To stamp the striped pattern on the die cut letters, I tape them to a piece of scrap paper. Then I take one of the plaid maker stamps that builds large plaid squares and ink up with Aquatini and stamp 2 of the letters at a time. I make sure to use a sticky note to mask off the others so I don't accidentally get ink on it. For the word happy, I'm going to use the other stamp so the lines go in the opposite direction for contrast. After trimming the panel, I add strips of score tape to the back of each die cut word so that only the centers of the letters will be adhered in the negative space. This way, the tops and bottoms of the letters can be lifted for some dimension. spaces between the letters, so I have to recut the words and add those white pieces to the front panel. Then I flip over the panel and use the tip of my tweezers to push out the tops and bottoms of the words to create dimension. This will create a very scrappy and artistic look for the card. Since there are no shaker elements or windows to worry about on this card, I use a solid piece of fun foam between the top panel and card base. Now it's time to add the embellishments, and again I use a combination of enamel dots and die-cut silver glitter stars. This time I use a purple Copic marker to color a white enamel dot to match the royal treatment ink. I'm using the head of a pin to apply the glossy accents this time instead of dipping the die cuts into the adhesive. The last card is done, and here's a review of all 3 cards. All of the same layout, but each one features a variation of techniques using the same stamp and die sets. Ellen Hutson is giving away a $25 gift certificate to their online store, so be sure to leave a comment here on this video as well as Kaylin's video. One lucky winner will be chosen randomly from this video or Kaylin's video. You must be a subscriber to both our channels. Comments will close at 11:59 p.m. Eastern on July 21st. The winner will be announced on both our blogs on July 23rd. Please head over to Kaylin's blog and YouTube channel using the link below to see her take on these fabulous Essentials by Ellen products. As always, I'd love to hear from you, and your comments are greatly appreciated. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more inspiration. Supply links are below if you're interested in any of the products I used in this video. You can also visit my blog for stills and more information about my cards. Thanks so much for watching!